this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Quirkjian. I'm his son, Jeff Quirkjian. And Dad, you are in Seattle. You are just traveling all across the United States of America and Canada in order to make this go through. Wow.
Connection flight. And this morning, Jeff had a little trouble. West Coast got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and could not go back to sleep. So I always get up at 5:30 or 6 every day. Well, it was 6 a.m. Eastern time. So I've been up since 3, Ravi and Eddie. Thanks so much to Carl Ravage and Eduardo Perez for being on our podcast yesterday. I'm still chuckling at those guys. What a ridiculous threesome we are. The Three Stooges, without a doubt.
Yeah, and when I was going through and editing it and producing it up, I mean, it just did that. I just kind of stopped trying at one point. It was chaos. Carl gets up to go talk to the housekeeper, and we got a million things going, and it was great. It was beautiful chaos. Right. Don't get me wrong. As Luke Combs would say, it was beautiful, crazy, and I loved it. So if you missed it, you got to go back and listen or watch on YouTube as well. That's worth a quick note, Dad. Really trying to grow our YouTube subscribers. So you go YouTube, search "Is this a great game or what?" Hit subscribe it's completely free. You can watch every episode since day one of the first season is videoed. Every interview is videoed, and it's up there waiting for you. So if you ever wanted to go back and watch one of your favorite interviews or episodes, you can do that and just hit subscribe while you're there. Is this a great game or what on YouTube?
Right. So Ravi called me this morning just to see if I wanted to go out to breakfast, but I couldn't because I'm doing the podcast with my son. But he asked me again if I'm going to go down to the Pike Street Market and throw a salmon around with Eddie. Like, he thinks we're going to go down and throw a salmon at a market, which I guess they do down there, but the customers are not allowed to do that, right? Unless you buy the salmon.
I mean, I think you at least have to purchase it before you start slinging fish all around. But, I mean, I love Seattle, Dad. I think it has so much character. And we need another video of you doing that.
I love Seattle also. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not up for throwing a salmon. Although I played catch with Tim Salmon once, but I've never actually thrown a salmon before. So,
yeah, and a lot of people have dreams of playing catch with Mike Trout. So, want to give a big shout out to Seattle Stu, who is a member of the family, listener of the podcast. I also want to give a shout out to Tina and Kyle Leedy, who live in Ording, Washington. And they're just eating up, Dad, the Mariners. They took the first 2 games on the road. By the time we release this, we will have one more game of the ALCS in the bag. So we're not sure if the Mariners took game 3 at home or not, but they're just eating this team up. I mean, the excitement of Cal Raleigh during the regular season, but now this playoff run has been so exciting for Seattle.
And Kyle's the guy who played baseball with Cedric Mullins in college, right? That is pretty cool.
They were the fighting Camels.
Right. And Jeff.
And, he was a good college baseball player, my buddy Kyle Leedy. Right. So, big shout out to him. So, Campbell fighting camels. Campbell fighting camels. I always get that wrong.
So, Jeff, speaking of Campbell's, okay, when I used to come here to the Kingdom, this is late 70s, early 80s, as the beat guy for the Dallas Morning News, the guy who ran the elevator at the Kingdom, I forget his first name. I think it was like Caleb. It doesn't matter. His last name is Campbell. And he was like I'll be close on this, like the heir to the Campbell Soup, company. All right. Yes. And he just chose not to get involved in that, even though his family was involved and he ran the elevator at the Kingdom. How about that story? You see this guy, Dad, and every time he takes you up, he's so happy to see you. And we finally asked, who is that guy? And they said, he's the heir to the Campbell Soup fortune, and he's running an elevator.
That, I can't believe that is true. You're telling me he's the Prince Harry of soup?
Yes.
He just said, I don't want anything to do with this.
I'll be close on that. This was not an urban legend. This was the actual truth. Now, the exact details, I'm not sure. But every time I used to come to the Kingdom, and I would see him 3 times a year because my team, the Rangers, traveled to Seattle 3 times a year. So I love this place. I'm going to start drinking coffee too, Jeff. You have to when you come to Seattle, right? It's kind of everywhere, right?
You do. I mean, I didn't have my first cup of coffee until I was 30. And that follows tradition because I've never seen my mom drink a cup of coffee. And you didn't have your first one until you were on the air with Mike and Mike in the morning, way back when, and you were 50.
Right. Yeah, I was about 50, and I was challenged by Mike Greenberg, who could not believe that a grown man, especially a sports baseball writer, had never had a cup of coffee. So I probably had 5 cups in my life now, and I don't dislike it, but I think I'm going to start drinking it now that I'm here in Seattle. Good idea?
Well, I'll send you what I order at a coffee shop because it's just like the farthest thing away from an actual coffee. It's coffee.
The furthest thing away, right, Jeff?
Oh, yes. Right. Farther is distance. Further is
time. A measure of time. Yes. Right. Good point.
Or not even time. I mean, this is like just a hypothetical distance.
Sorry to be English professor
a
here.
Pedantic baseball writer.
Twit. Yeah, keep going. Yeah. Okay, very good.
Anyway, yeah, I'll send you my coffee order. But I'll let you know if you're gonna get mad about grammar. They'll probably spell your name wrong on the cup.
Well, that's different than grammar. That's spelling.
They'll say coffee for Jim. Jim.
Right. Jim? I did a Seattle radio show many years ago, and I was introduced Mr. Tim Kajurkjian, and I just felt the need to correct them, and that's when the guy said, "Boy, I thought there was a jerk in there somewhere." That was his comeback to screwing up my name. Thank you very much for that.
You're the jerk in that one, kind sir.
I didn't take it personally. Our name is hard to pronounce.
All right, Dad. Takeaways? Should we jump right in?
Yes, we should. The Dodgers pitching. I told you this, Jeff. Everyone said the Dodgers starting pitching is dominant, but it's been even better than I expected. Their postseason ERA from their starters is 1.54. Blake Snell is the third pitcher ever to throw 8+ innings and allow only one base runner in a postseason game. The only 2 who ever did that are, of course, Roy Halladay, who pitched a no-hitter in the playoffs, and Don Larson, who pitched a perfect game in the 1956 World Series. But Snell is the first pitcher ever to have multiple starts in the postseason of at least 6 innings and 1 hit or less. And this is in your entire postseason career. He did it in back-to-back starts. He has been absolutely unhittable. His combination of slider, curveball, and changeup is just ridiculous. And he's the guy I told you, Jeff, who collects shoes for a living also. And he told me years ago about this when he was with the Rays, but he told me recently he's got an entire room in his house, and he can afford it, of course, just for his shoes. It's the shoe room. And he's got thousands of pairs of shoes. So, and he's a great pitcher. And that's why they're up 2-0 on the Brewers, because Yoshi Yamamoto followed him and pitched a complete game in Game 2. Jeff, when do you think was the last complete game pitched in the postseason? I shouldn't quiz you like this because I wouldn't have known this either. Last complete game in the postseason by anyone was Justin Verlander in 2017. That's the last time we had a complete game in the postseason. And the last time teammates had back-to-back starts of at least 8 innings and 1 run or fewer was also by the Dodgers, 1983, Jerry Royce and Fernando Valenzuela. That's how dominant the Dodgers starting pitching has been. That's why they lead 2-0 against the Brewers. And they've done this. You know, Shohei Ohtani had an 0-for-15 stretch in the postseason. He broke it in Game 2. But imagine that. The MVP of the league was 0-for-15, and they still ended up winning the first 2 games of the league championship series. Jeff, I told you, their roster is the best in baseball when it's healthy. And now it appears to be healthy.
Yeah, a lot of people across the country were rooting for a Brewers, Mariners, never won a World Series. And after going down 2-0, we'll see how the weekend goes. Baseball is strange, but I'm sure you have stats on teams losing the first 2 games at home, and the stats of them coming back. I mean,
25 out of 28, Jeff. 25 out of 28 have lost if you lose the first 2 games of a 7-gamer at home. That's what you're up against. But with baseball 2025, Jeff, nothing. This is what we've learned from this year is just when you think it's over, it's not. Because just when you think you understand baseball, you don't, especially in 2025. But saying that, I love where the Dodgers are as far as their talent and their starting pitching.
All right, Dad, more takeaways other than the dominant Dodgers pitching.
Right. Look, the Mariners have played exceptionally well in the first two games against the Blue Jays, and Jorge Polanco has been amazing. So his OPS went from 651 last year to 821 this year. He's a good major league player. Had a bad year last year, had a very good year this year, and has, gotten some of the biggest hits in the history of the franchise in back-to-back-to-back games. That's how important Jorge Polanco has been to the Mariners. So I asked one of their guys, explain this guy. And he said, well, last year his knee was bad, was so injured that he played through it, that he went to see a doctor after the season. And the doctor said, I cannot believe that you tried to play on a knee that was this screwed up. He played hurt virtually all of last year. It showed. And Jeff, we've said this before inside baseball, when your legs aren't under you as a hitter, you can't run, you can't play the field defensively, but you can't hit either if your legs aren't under you. Mm-hmm. Well, now Jorge Polanco's legs are under him, and he has been an amazing player. And speaking of, hitting and not hitting, Jeff, I had a guy in the game tell me the other day, there's a lot of stuff out there about stealing signs right now. Like more and more players are looking for a tell on somebody. Look, he's moving his glove. I heard that about Kevin Gausman. Hey, we got something on Kevin Gausman. This is what major league coaches, managers, scout, they're really good at this. Eduardo's the best I've ever seen at it. But the point is, this guy told me the reason it is so prevalent right now is the pitching is so unbelievably good that you kind of have to know what's coming in order to get a hit. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa of the Blue Jays was telling me the other day, he said, when you face Jacob Misiorowski of the Brewers or Paul Skeens, you just picked two guys. You could have picked 20 guys. He said, as a major league hitter, you just go up there hoping you can hit the ball. Not even hit it hard. You just hope you can hit it.
And I've talked to Eduardo about it. You brought him up. He knows everything, and it comes from him sitting in the dugout with his dad
and with Rose. Very good, Jeff.
And him saying, follow, watch, learn from this game. And even Eddie had said, he had some real issues with his eye in his playing days. And he said, the only way I could get advantage was be able to see what the pitcher is coming with me, because I was just that far behind with bad vision in one of his eyes. Yeah. So fascinating.
Yeah, Pete Rose told Eduardo Perez, who was like 8-10 years old at the time, if you're going to be on the bench, you're going to learn something. Sit next to me. That's how Eduardo learned how to do this. And last thing, Jeff, Dan Wilson is the manager of the Mariners. He's one of the best defensive catchers I've ever seen, runs a game perfectly and everything. This struck me. I don't know where I've been, Jeff, but we asked him the other day at the managers meeting, how often have you guys pitched out this year? You know what a pitch out is, right, Jeff? Mm-hmm. He said, I don't think we pitched out once the entire season. And again, this is how the game is played today, that you don't want to give up a ball in a count because the counts are so important. The difference between 1-0 and 0-1 is like night and day, 1-2, 2-1. So he doesn't think, this is a former catcher, that they pitched out one time all season. I find that amazing. And I'm not sure that's good, but this is just the trend of the game today.
I'm telling you, Dad, pitchers have a huge advantage. When are they going to back the mound up another 6 inches?
Yes. Again, Manny Acta, coach for the Mariners, has been telling me for 4 years now, we have to move the mound back. The hitters do not have enough time to react. He says, I'm not talking about moving back 5 feet. I'm moving it back 2 feet. You know how big a difference 2 feet is, though, Jeff?
Huge.
But this is a former player, a former major league manager, and one of the best instructor coaches in the business. And he believes with all his heart, to make the game better, we have to move the mound to 62 feet, 6 inches. How about that?
Dad, I don't want to get hot takey. That's not what our show does. But I think what's going to happen is they're waiting for something bad to happen, a pitcher to get hurt on the mound, and they say, we're going to do this for the safety of the pitcher. And the pitchers are going to say, no, no, no. Don't make it look like we need this. You're doing this because we're too good at what we do.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly what it is, Jeff. The stuff that's
how it's going to go down.
The stuff that we see today is absolutely ridiculous. And speaking of hot takes, Jeff, we're going to start the Quirkjians this week. And during it, we're going to have a bit of a hot take. You know, there's no point in getting angry anymore, but something happened that just burned me, and I'll have to talk about it. So the first Quirkjian, the only Quirkjian of the week we need is the double play that happened in the Brewers-Dodgers game, okay? If you didn't see it, the bases are loaded, and Sal Frelick, the center fielder of the Brewers, runs to the wall on a ball hit by Max Muncy. It hits him in the glove, bounces out, hits the outfield wall, and then he catches it again. Now, Jeff, we umpired, very small level, but we umpired. The second that ball hit the wall, what is that? It's a fair ball. Fair ball, and it's not a legal catch.
It's a live ball.
Because the ball hit the wall. So, Teoscar Hernandez, this is my hot take, I have no idea what he was thinking there. He did not tag up at third initially. He went like a quarter of the way, and then he went back to third. And by the time he went back to third, and he doesn't have to go back to third to tag up, Jeff, because the ball is in play, he gets thrown out on a force play at the plate that went 8-6-2. And then the catcher, William Contreras, maybe the only truly alert player on the field, gets the force at third at home and then runs to third base and tags third for a double play because Will Smith, the runner on second, he has to advance to third here because there are people coming behind him. He doesn't advance. So it is a double play, Jeff. And it goes, the only way to score it is a grounded into double play, 8-6-2, even though the ball truly never hit the ground. It's the strangest play I've ever seen in the postseason. The first thing I thought of was, have I ever seen that before? Answered, no, I've never seen it. I checked with a dozen people. In fact, 2 scouts were on my flight from Toronto to Seattle. I asked them both, have you ever seen this? They said no. Alfonso Marquez, who's going to be one of the umpires in this series, was on my flight. I told him about that, and he just shook his head like I don't think I've ever seen that before either. So we've never had a 8-6-2 double play in the history of the postseason. So I checked with Frank from the ALCS. So, Jeff, do you follow me on this? Are you as confused as everyone else? And can you understand how Teoscar Hernandez cannot understand that the second that ball hits the outfielder's glove, the first time, he's allowed to tag up and go home? When he sees that the ball hits the wall, he has to recognize, I don't have to tag up. I got to run home. He got forced out at the plate on a ball that went 400 feet.
Well, and Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, too. Dad, you can't sit in outfield and bobble a ball.
All right, that's the point, Jeff. The minute the ball touches your hand, your glove, then you can run home, okay? Because you're right.
Even if he ends up diving or it never hits the wall or it hits his head and then he catches it and it's a catch, as soon as it hits his glove, you can go, even though technically he hasn't even secured the catch yet. So that's the big, for fans who aren't thinking it through, like, oh, well, he needed to wait for it to be a catch anyway. He didn't, because as soon as it hit his glove, if he catches it, it's a catch. But the catch would technically be when it hit his glove, or else he could do one of these
juggle it all the way to the infield.
That's
why the rule is in place. So I called Frank from the ALCS and asked him the last time we had an 8-6-2 double play in the regular season. So he wrote me back. And on April 16, 2004, Ken Griffey Jr. is in center field. Sammy Sosa hits a deep fly to center, but Todd Walker is on second base for the Reds. He tags up from second. I think this is how it went. Tried to score, and Griffey threw him out at the plate 8-6-2. 2. So it's a double play because Griffey caught the ball. But this play, Jeff, is completely different because the ball wasn't caught. And it was a force play at the plate, not a tag play like it was on Todd Walker. And it doesn't go down as a GIDP because it's not. So our pal Jason Stark, who's the best of all time at these things, he got together with Retro Sheet and a bunch of other really smart guys. And I'm not positive exactly what they came up with, but I think the understanding is that play has never happened in baseball history quite like that, regular season or postseason. That's why it was the damnedest thing I've ever seen, Jeff. And I had a buddy of mine, big Dodger fan, called me screaming at me, how can that be a force at the plate? And then I had to explain after watching it. Well, the ball was not caught. He has to run, and there's a force at all bases when there are the bases loaded and a ball is put in play. It's that simple. So in game 1 of the Dodger Brewer series, as we said, Blake Snell got the victory. And you know who got the save, Jeff? Blake Trinan got the save. So we had a Blake got the win. Blake got the save. Bill Chuck, our good friend from Billy Ball, alerted me to this. I had already seen it, but thank you, Bill. He's so helpful with a lot of things. So he wondered, is that the first Blake save and win? No, it happened on March the 27th. Blake Snell got the win. Blake Trinan got the save for the Dodgers. And Blake Parker saved 2 games for Blake Wood on the 2017 Angels. So it has been done before. And the last thing, Jeff, another alert reader, even though I noticed this, we had the George Springer homer the other day to start the game on the first pitch, and the Blue Jays they got 1 hit the rest of the way. And, they are the only team in postseason history to get a leadoff home run and then get only 1 hit for the rest of the game. So Jackson Chourio hit a leadoff homer in game 2 for the Brewers, and the same thing, they got several more hits off of Yamamoto, but it was the only run they scored. So how weird is it, Jeff, that twice in like a 4-day span in the postseason can a team get a leadoff homer and then score in one run the rest of the game, or no runs the rest of the game? That's how crazy that week was.
It's the pitching. It always goes back to the pitching.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably good.
It's just not fair. I'm telling you, we're going to have to do something about this. Otherwise, the hitters are going to have to make a major adjustment because a lot of nights they don't have a chance.
At this point, we're going to end up with somebody with a batting title batting under 300.
Yes, well, Jeff, 304 led the National League this year. That's just the way the game is played now. It's incredible.
All right, Dad. Coming up next here on Is This a Great Game or What? We've got On This Date in Baseball History, a Team Tim coming close to the end from Ozzie to Orel, and we'll play with some baseball cards next. All right, Dad, on this date in baseball history, we're talking October 16th. What do you got?
Well, on this date, Aaron Boone hit the famous home run off of Tim Wakefield. And, Booney has told me that story because I pulled it out of him many times. Tell us again, Jeff, what Booney was thinking when he hit that home run, because I've told it multiple times. I think you told it last week, but tell it again because it's Aaron Boone and it's worth telling.
Arguably one of the biggest home runs in the history of the New York Yankees, Game 7, ALCS against the Boston Red Sox at Yankee Stadium. And he hits it, pretty much knows as long as it stays fair, it's going to be gone. And as he strides running towards first, he says, "Remember this moment." And then he said, when my foot hit first base, I just blacked out. I just didn't have anything going on. The energy, the testosterone, the excitement, all of the above just completely blacked him out, which I can understand why.
Yes, absolutely. So roughly 15 years after that, I'm covering baseball with Aaron Boone at ESPN. And we have a game in Boston, and it's during the ALS, which we're very close to, Jeff, as you know, Ice Bucket Challenge, the whole Pete Frates thing that just raised so much money for ALS awareness. So I get challenged by Rick Sutcliffe, so I do it in the front yard, douse myself. It was embarrassing, but it was freezing cold, but I did it. And then I challenged Aaron Boone, and as you know, you have to do it within like 24 hours of the challenge for it to be real. So we're in Boston. And Boone is a broadcaster for ESPN. So he goes down to the hotel bar at noon. We have a game at 7 that night. He goes to the hotel bar, and there's no one in the bar except for the back bar or the bar keep, whatever that's called, whatever that guy's called. And he said, listen, I need your help. I need you to pour some really cold water over my head. Douse me with cold water as part of the ice bucket challenge. Would you be willing to do this? And this young bartender looks at him and goes, well, I'd be happy to do that. You're Aaron Boone. I hate your guts. And because he had beaten the Red Sox in 2003 with the famous walk-off home run. So that was a Boone story about that. I love it. Also, Jeff, on this date in the 2020 World Series, we had the famous Will Smith against Will Smith at bat. It was Will Smith, the reliever for the Tampa Bay Rays, and Will Smith, the catcher for the Dodgers. And in that same game, Jeff, or in that same series at least, we had a Ryan Sheriff pitching for the Rays against Chris Taylor. So we had a Sheriff Taylor at bat. Now, Jeff, do you know who Sheriff Taylor is?
Isn't that Andy Taylor?
Andy Taylor from
the Andy Griffith Show,
Andy
right?
Griffith Show, Buck Showalter's favorite show. He knows the number of every episode, Citizen's Arrest, whatever it is. Oh, that's episode number 103 or whatever. That's what Buck Showalter can do with sitcoms. This is why we love sitcoms so much, why we mention Get Smart on the air all the time, and because it's the greatest sitcom ever. So yes, we had a Sheriff Taylor and a Will Smith versus Will Smith at bat in the 2020 World Series. Which Jeff brings us to our team, Tim. And I can honestly say, Jeff, I have never worked harder on one than this one. I had a almost 5-hour flight through Chicago, and then Chicago almost 5 hours to Seattle, and I worked on this the entire way. So Will Smith against Will Smith, Jeff, it's not an at-bat thing, it's a team. So what do you think my team, Tim, is this week? If it's not an at-bat, but I have to have a player at each position, and Will Smith versus Will Smith is the clue.
Okay, well, we could go actors, Will Smith, or we could go some sort of names,
right?
Like shared names?
Shared names at each position. And boy, Jeff, this was just a labor of love.
So you have two guys on each position that have the same name?
In the history of baseball. And it took me at least 6 hours to do this, at least. And there's a major fudge in here, I'm going to tell you that. But I don't want to say I'm proud of what I did, because this was the biggest waste of time of my entire life. But seriously, Jeff, what else, if you don't bring a book with you, what else are you going to do for 6 hours on a flight from Chicago, because we were delayed, 6 hours from Chicago to Seattle? This is what you do, at least.
Yeah, well, what normal people do, Dad, is they use their smartphones to watch movies and TV. Right. But I know you struggle a little bit when it comes to technology. So, yes, I understand. What would Tim Quirkjian do for 6 hours? Yes. All right, let's start it off. What do you got?
There's a connection to Sheriff Taylor, which I finally figured out. Of course. The two catchers. There were two catchers in the major leagues, both named Hal Smith. And Hal Smith is the name of Otis the Drunk in the Andy Mayberry Show, the Andy Griffith Show. Remember Jim DeShays was from Messina, New York, same as Otis the Drunk? And there are two guys named Hal Smith who played in the major leagues and shared the same. And Jeff, I don't know why I get such a kick out of this. So what is the distinction of Otis the Drunk on the Andy Griffith Show? Do you remember what we said? What separates him from every character on?
He's the only one who's married, right?
Barney, Andy, Thelma Lou, Goober, Gomer, they're all single. Floyd the barber, except for Otis the Drunk, and he's in jail every night because he's drunk.
It's incredible. Dad, fun fact about Hal Smith. Did you know that he actually did? He's a voice actor as well. Was a voice actor for a long time, and he voiced the owl in Winnie the Pooh for quite a few of these episodes. Yeah, I remember when we looked him up when we were talking to was it Jim DeShays,
yes,
right? And I looked him up, and I was like, he's credited for a lot of different voices, including he was in Aladdin, Dad. Now he had a very, very small role, but it was Jafar's horse.
Yes,
in Aladdin.
Right. I remember the horse. He was drunk all the time too. I think the horse.
Right.
I don't think so. Okay, so I was so thrilled to complete this team, but to start it with Hal Smith and then connect it somehow to this date in baseball history, that really made my trip very satisfying. Okay, first baseman of Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas played in the 60s, good player. Frank Thomas, Hall of Famer, much later. I'm not going to explain who all these people are, but Jimmy Williams is our second baseman. Two guys named Jimmy Williams played second base. And this is my favorite. Our two third basemen, which could be our two second basemen, we want it, is Max Muncy, active, still playing in the playoffs for the Dodgers, and Max Muncy of the Oakland A's, infielder, rookie. And what distinction do they share, Jeff, besides having and they're not related, besides having the same name?
I'm not sure.
Jeff,
are they?
They have the same birthday.
No, they don't.
They do, Jeff. It's an unusual name, Max Muncy. They have the same name, and they share the same birthday, and they're not related.
Wow. I'm looking through this right now, Dad. This is unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah, August the 25th. Obviously different years, but that is crazy.
Right. That's just astonishing to me. Now, the shortstop is the real fudge. I could not find two shortstops with the exact same name. So I went back to the early 1900s, and I love this, even though I fudged it. There was a shortstop briefly named Red Smith, and a guy who played similar time named Red Smith who played third base. Now, do you know who Red Smith is, Jeff? Red Smith is one of the great sports writers, New York Times, in the history of sports writing. He won the Career Excellence Award for baseball writers. So I'm on the same list as him, even though I have no place on the same list of anything with Red Smith.
You struggled so much to admit that, Dad.
Sorry.
You're on the list. You were voted on by your peers.
I do not belong on the same list with Red Smith. That's how great he was. But we had two guys. I'm fudging the shortstop part of it because one was only a third baseman, but that's my shortstop is Red Smith. We had an outfielder named Brian Anderson. Two outfielders. We have two outfielders named Lee May. The difference is one Lee May was mostly a first baseman. The other Lee May spells his last name Maye. But when you're struggling this badly to find two guys at each position, we had two guys named Bob Johnson. One of them was really good, who played the outfield. And I love this, Jeff, and I covered this guy. Bob Gibson, of course, is one of the greatest pitchers of all time. There was another Bob Gibson that pitched in the major leagues for the Brewers and a couple other teams. We had a chat one day once. It was funny about having the same name and playing the same position as one of the greatest players of all, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. That was the hard part, Jeff. I mean, Will Smith and Will Smith, but they don't play the same position. That was the challenge that I found. There are two Pedro Martinez's that played in the major leagues. Of course, one is, and isn't that interesting, Jeff? We have the first two guys I mentioned, Pedro Martinez and Bob Gibson. What distinction do they share?
Hall of Famers.
Right, and what else? From Ozzie to Orel.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're both on the list.
Number 45. Jeff, we only get positive reinforcement from our listeners on this show. I'm so happy that I don't have to read angry people every night. The only time I offended anyone or you offended anyone, can't believe I'm going to bring this up again, is when I picked Pedro Martinez over Bob Gibson in the hardest decision of my life as the greatest number 45 of all time. And they both have another pitcher who shared the exact same name. But they didn't pitch against each other, Jeff. Bobby Jones of the Rockies started against Bobby Jones of the New York Mets in 1999. It was the first time in the 20th century that two pitchers who share the same first and last name pitched against each other. How great is that?
So Pedro Martinez never faced Pedro Martinez because they were in the game at the same time.
Not as a starting pitcher, at least not that I know of. If I screw this up, Jeff, the podcast will be canceled forever.
It'll be over.
Right.
All right, Dad. Well, that was excellent job. I know that took you a
long time, but
it
was very satisfying because I learned something. I found some names I hadn't seen in a while. Jeff, that's what I love to do with baseball is just kind of relive. These names come up from my childhood and everything else. And I would say, yeah, I think there was another guy by this name. And then that it was right. So good. And you learned about Red Smith today. How about that?
I love it. All right, Dad. So from Ozzie to Orel, the greatest players to wear each number, 1 through 55. We're on to number 54. We're saving 55 as a big, big tease because you don't know who it is. Even though it's from 1 to 55, Ozzie 1, 55. Draw the conclusions here. We'll go to 54. We'll save 55 to wrap up next week. What do you got, Dad?
Goose Gossage, Hall of Fame pitcher, is the greatest number 54 of all time. He made 9 All-Star teams, saved 310 games. And Jeff, he pitched at a time long before we used to just bring the closer in with the bases empty in the 9th inning to get 3 outs and give him a save. Goose Gossage did it, as did Raleigh Fingers, Bruce Sutter, and a few others, a different way. In fact, in the famous the famous game number 163 between the Red Sox and the Yankees in 1978, the Bucky Dent game, whatever you want to call it, Goose Gossage got the save in that game, and he got 8 outs, Jeff. He pitched the final 2 2/3 innings. Nobody would do that today. It would be unheard of. It would be impossible that your closer would do that, even in a huge game like this. But that's what Goose Gossage did. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. And Joe Ostermeyer, who's become like a really good friend of the show. He's a sports writer from St. Louis. And get this, he wrote me the other day when we were talking about best players of all time. And he said, when you get to number 54, make sure you include this. Save number 308 for Goose Gossage. He saved victory number 308 for Nolan Ryan. Ryan got his 308th victory, and Gossage got his 308th save in the same game. I mean, is that not beautiful, Jeff, or what?
Yeah. All right, wrapping up today's episode, Dad. 3 cards in the bathroom. What do you have from your hotel room in Seattle?
Right. Well, I did get home for a day in between series, so I went down to the bathroom and pulled out 3 cards. I didn't even look at them until I got on this trip, and I'm so thrilled with the names that came out, okay? And these are some old baseball cards, right? First one is Mark Salas, who caught, for about 7 or 8 years for a bunch of teams, Twins, and all that stuff. So first off, what's the distinction of Mark Salas, Jeff?
His last name is a palindrome.
There you go. Jeff, you are, I am so proud of you. You have learned so much about the most impossibly stupid things in the world. Who cares that his last name is a palindrome? There was a pitcher named Fernando Salas, who also is a palindrome. Imagine if Mark Salas had caught Fernando Salas. Would that have been the greatest Quirkjian in the history of Quirkjians?
Well, imagine if either of them became a race car driver. Right, it'd be way better.
Right. Race car, forward and backwards. Just unbelievable. The other thing about Mark Salas, I hope I don't offend anyone here, his nickname was the Chief. And you're too young to know this, Jeff, but he was nicknamed the Chief because he looks like the Chief from the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which came out like right at a time when he was playing in the major leagues. And, the Chief was in prison and he was like a weird guy.
Right.
If you haven't seen the movie, and there's a basketball scene, which, I love basketball, any basketball scene I'm in. But yeah, the Chief is like, they just throw it to him and so that's Mark Salas's nickname, the Chief. And he's a palindrome.
Love that.
This one just almost killed me, Jeff. And I'm sorry, only I would remember something like this. This is Dwayne Bice. He pitched for the Angels while I was covering the Orioles for the Baltimore Sun in the 80s, late 80s. So Dwayne Bice, I find out when the Angels come to town that he loves Get Smart. Somehow I find this out. And he can do the greatest Get Smart impersonation of Don Adams, Maxwell Smart. So I went to this guy, Dwayne Bice, who pitched like 3 years in the big leagues, and said, look, you don't know me. I cover the Orioles, but I'm the biggest Get Smart fan of all time. And I said, I understand that you can do an impersonation of Maxwell Smart. And he said, would you believe? And he went right into it.
Right into
it. I was just so happy that I would meet a baseball player who not only knew what the greatest sitcom of all time of mine is, Get Smart, but he could imitate Maxwell Smart. It was a highlight, one of the highlights of my career. Is that pretty bad to have that as a highlight, Jeff?
It is a little sad. You've been through a lot of great baseball stories, and for that to even crack the top 10 is sad. But we still love you, Dan.
3 cards in the bathroom. I love that. All right, last one, and this is important. This is Jamie Moyer. Jamie Moyer won 269 games. The last time he pitched was in 2012 at age 49. You know, he got off to a rough start in his career. They didn't think he was going to pitch anymore. He got released, and he just kept coming back because he had such a unique understanding of the art of pitching. He deserves an enormous amount of credit for, learning how to pitch without an above average fastball. In fact, he didn't throw very hard at all. And Jeff, who is his father-in-law? Let's see if you remember that, because you met his father-in-law.
Oh, gosh.
And you mispronounced his father-in-law's name, to me at least, when you were...
Oh, my gosh. Is it Digger Phelps?
Yeah. So Digger Phelps, the former Notre Dame basketball coach, is the father-in-law to Jamie Moyer. And Jeff, we're not going to hurt Digger Phelps's feelings because you were 10 years old. But what did you call him when we got to the car after meeting him?
After we met him, I said, I can't believe I met Digger Phillips.
Pretty good. So Digger Phelps told me a story once about Jamie Moyer, that they're driving home after a game, and now he's deep into his career and he's really good. He's one of the better pitchers in the game, but he throws like 86 miles an hour. Okay. Sometimes less than that. So one of his children says to him, Dad, could you just throw one pitch at 90 miles an hour for us? Could you just do that once so your kids could see that you threw a ball 90, 95 miles an hour or whatever? So Jamie said, look, son, that's not how I pitch. That's not what I do. And they continue the drive home. And one of the kids looks at the speedometer and says, Dad, you are driving the car faster than you throw a fastball. That's what he said. And Digger Phelps told me that story. So that's my Jamie Moyer story. I have many of them, but that's just one from 3 cards in the bathroom.
Next time you hear a new episode from us, it will be this coming Tuesday, which will be the day of Game 7 for the NLCS, if necessary, of course. The night before, Monday night, will be Game 6 of the NLCS, Game 7 of the ALCS. So we're going to keep you updated as much as we can. Big shout out, Dad. You're going to roll your eyes, but thank you for being so flexible. Thank you for lugging the equipment around. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but you are crushing it even from abroad. I'm still in the basement waiting for you to come back to do an episode with me during the off season. Boy, oh boy, do we miss you down here.
I can't, and so, you're moving. So what I'll do is I'll come over, help you get moved in the beginning of November. I'll bring our giant truck. I'll help you move some stuff. I'm not too old to help. And then once you get your basement set up, we'll do a podcast from down there. How about that?
Sounds good. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, thanks for being a part of our family.